One. Go.
Welcome. Good afternoon. I'm Leslie Warner, and I'm Assistant Director of Alumni Career Services at Tufts. Welcome to today's webinar, which is about LinkedIn for networking, career building, and job search. I wanted to tell you before we jump into the webinar and introduce my speaker, I want to tell you real quickly a few things about what we do at Tufts Alumni Career Services. First goal is presenting programs like this, including webinars and, when we're able to, in-person networking events for all alumni, all schools, and we've increased our offerings to help you during this time. So watch your email, watch our website for upcoming titles in June, July, August, and into the fall. Our second goal is to foster networking and connections between alumni and students. And we have a new online resource to do that for alumni to alumni networking and alumni mentoring students. It's called The Herd for Art Sciences and Engineering and SMFA grads. And again, check the bottom of our emails or our website if you'd like to join. It's easy, it's fast. We're really excited about this new platform and, of course, about LinkedIn, which is for everyone, Tufts alumni and others. And the third thing we do is provide individual career coaching appointments for graduates of Art Sciences and Engineering and School of the Museum of Fine Arts, no charge, lifelong resource. Now for today's webinar, just a little bit of housekeeping. We'll be presenting from now until 2:15. And questions will be answered throughout the presentation. Our presenter Sabrina may pause and ask what the questions are. I might raise my hand and tell her there's a timely question about what she's just presented, and we'll also have time at the end. So do type your questions into the chat section. And you find chat, usually in most platforms, you move your cursor around and you'll find it at the bottom of your screen, and it's a bubble that looks like, like in a cartoon where someone's speech bubble is. And you can post your chat to everybody if you don't mind everyone seeing your question, or you can say it to, let's see, all panelists. If you say all panelists, that means me, myself, Nicole, Nicole Anderson, my colleague, is also on the call as our sort of technical, making sure you can all get access, making sure all the parts and pieces are working. So again, post your questions in the chat anytime, and then we'll get to them throughout the time. We are recording this webinar. We just wanted to remind you about that. The great news about that is if you're pretty savvy with LinkedIn, today's webinar will probably be some new information, some new features of LinkedIn, some strategic advice, and some things that you may be familiar with. If you're new to LinkedIn, this is going to be a lot, right, Sabrina?
Yes.
It'll come quickly, but you can rewatch it. You can share it with others. It'll be available within about a week, I believe. So let's get started. Here's our presenter. Today is Sabrina Woods. Those of you that were with us a couple of weeks ago, she presented about resilience and mindfulness, very, very important parts of any job search or life, especially right now. So you can find that archived on our website. But today, she's going to be talking about LinkedIn. And Sabrina is a career coach that I've known personally for over 15 years. I can't even remember the exact date that we met. It probably was close to the time when Sabrina was getting engaged and active in the Boston area, because she was very involved with our local Professional Career Counselors Association, and that's where we first met. We've been friends and colleagues ever since. I've watched as her work involved career coach work in several colleges, including Northeastern University and Harvard, as well as developing her private practice, supporting many people in navigating career change and job search challenges. We were also both members of a small group of career coaches who met regularly to share resources and support each other's work. I've attended some of her trainings before, and we are in for a treat. She has a lot of really great information to share from her personal coaching experience, from her clients' experiences, from her own educating of herself. And I know you're going to really enjoy her engaging training style. Welcome, Sabrina, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you for such a warm welcome, Leslie.
And Nicole, it's really special for me to get to partner with higher ed career coaches, especially now that I'm on my own. So I love being back in the higher ed environment. Today, working with mostly alumni, but I know we have maybe a handful of grad students and even some undergrads. So welcome, everyone. I'm going to shift back over to sharing my screen. And in particular, we're going to bounce back and forth between PowerPoint. Give me a moment here as we jump in there. Between PowerPoint and LinkedIn itself. But I think one of the nice things is, let me give you an overview and then let me share some stories with you about LinkedIn to kind of bring it a little bit more to life. So hopefully we'll talk about, or we'll answer the question, why bother? So how can LinkedIn be valuable to me? We're going to take the first, say, 20 minutes or so, or however long, half hour, talking about your profile. I want to really develop the concept about the headline, the about summary, do a little mindfulness exercise, actually reflecting about your summary, and talk to you a little bit about something that's relatively new called featured section. It used to be called media links. I kind of merged the name, featured media links and posts. Then we'll kind of shift into the networking components. So building those connections, doing informational interviews, and what are those strategies for you to really grow your presence and come across these job leads. So let me first tell you about Kian. She sent me this message after I did a LinkedIn in-person workshop with postdoctoral fellows at Harvard Medical School. She says that I recently found a job at Sanofi doing exactly what I wanted to do. Thank you so much for your help on my LinkedIn profile. I think that helped nail this job since I actually applied using my LinkedIn. I got the phone interview, the on-site, and then got the offer. So there's two messages here. One, improving her profile made a huge difference. And two, there are organizations out there, like Netflix, for example, is another one, where you can apply using your LinkedIn profile. Your profile can say so much more about you than the much more flat and static, I think, resume. Let me tell you another story about, this one's about Ranjith. This message came in after I was teaching at Brandeis, and he said, I'm joining a new job on May 1st, and I strongly believe your help in the profile helped me get the offer. And I wrote back and I said, I need to know more. And what he said is, I could see that there are people in the biotech industry that were looking at my profile. Now, if you look at Ranjith's headline, before he took the seminar, it said graduate student Brandeis. Afterwards, it was packed with those keywords. But here's the second point that's really interesting. He said, my profile helped me connect with a few prospective colleagues at the company with added confidence. So spending time and really developing his strengths and how he communicated his profile gave him the added confidence. So there's a lot more going on here than just some few words on a page. I want to share one more story that's really special to me, and that is more about networking and collaboration. It must have been about 2 years back, a woman named Leanne Hambley sent me a LinkedIn request from the UK. And I've got lots of ties to the UK. I worked there for a short bit, and I'm married to a Brit as well. So when I saw this and I looked at her background, I was like, wow, she's doing amazing things. So I sent her a message and said, hey, can we do a Skype sometime? That led to opportunities where she sat in on one of my workshops while I was teaching in London. I sat in on one of her workshops, and we've had chit chats since then. I invited her, fast forward to this year, I invited her to be a speaker at my Career Counselors Consortium conference, the one Leslie was talking about earlier, and she said yes. She was actually going to come in person, do a training, and have a keynote at the conference. She's still participating via our virtual one. But the point of the story is, this person who I connected with on LinkedIn has become a friend, a colleague, and a collaborator. So we never know what can happen in this medium. And it's not just about what's local, it's global. So let's dive into some content, and then in a few minutes, I'll take a break for questions. But what I really want to start with is a poll. I want to know how many of you have actually customized your professional headline, which is that information that goes right underneath your name. So Nicole's going to pop up a poll. And we just want to find out, have you customized it? If you don't customize it, it ends up being your most recent job. So take a moment and see if this poll can go up.
There it is.
It's fantastic. So have you customized it? You can do a quick yes, no, and then submit. I think this is a really valuable real estate, and you can have up to 120 characters if you edit it on the desktop version of LinkedIn. Interesting technology tip: if you edit your headline on your phone on the mobile app, you get more characters. So do that, get the LinkedIn app and do it that way if you want to have a little bit extra in there. All right. The other thing just to mention while the poll's coming in is that there was a handout that was part of this session, and I'm going to be mentioning pieces of that handout as we go. I updated the handout last night because some more things had changed. My online version, which is on my website, is still the old version. I'll have that updated by this evening. So just know that you've got a hard copy of that one, but that I keep an electronic version connected to my website and update it all the time. All right, let's see. Let's tell us about the poll results. And Leslie?
Okay, it says 12 out of 53 people said yes, they've updated their or edited their headline, and 30 out of 53 said no, and 11 had no answer. So that's really interesting, and that's actually 12 people having updated or edited their headline shows this is a somewhat savvy group, because my experience is a lot of people haven't.
All right, but we also have room to grow. So let's go through and share a couple of examples to kind of bring it to life a little bit. Here's one, and these are also on your handout. Supply chain manager, logistics analyst, identifying underperforming areas in the supply chain and finding resolutions. So it's the who am I and what can I do for you? I really love this one, and this came from a session that I was teaching Harvard undergraduates. And this person, or maybe it was grad students, this person said effervescently introverted and focused on diversity and inclusion. And I just loved that phrase, effervescently introverted. If you are a current student, here's a nice example. Include something like your internship, where you're working, your graduate studies, and a focus area. So health and wellness intern, Mass General, nutrition graduate student, diabetes prevention. One more to share is you might be headed in a new direction. Here's an example. You might be currently a software engineer. You've got these technical skills. You're blogging about mobile apps. And your long-term goal is future Android developer. For fun, I wanted to share this one. You can say purple Skittle in a pack of M&Ms. I'm a little bit different. Event management and digital marketing, USA in India, adventurous and kind-hearted. There's a lot of flexibility, as you can see with your LinkedIn headline. I'm going to move right into telling your story. This is about your about summary, and we're going to pop up a quick poll because I'd like to find out how many of you have actually worked on your summary at all. Put something in there. Do you have a little bit? Or are you really happy with it? So we'll have Nicole go ahead and pop up our poll and find out where our audience is at. I'm also going to say, while you're looking at the poll, in a minute, I'm going to invite you to do a reflective exercise. So if you have the ability to grab a piece of paper and a pen, I know we're on a laptop, we're so used to typing into a Word doc or what have you, but if you have paper and a pen nearby, I'm going to give you an invitation in a minute to do a short reflection exercise. But let's find out. You don't have a summary about section, or you have one, but maybe you could use a little bit of work, or hey, I've got it and it's in good shape. Give you another moment and then Leslie can wrap us up.
It was nice the way you combined the answering the poll with going to get your paper and pen.
Yeah. Oh, we're used to multitasking these days, aren't we? Not that it's good for us, but yeah. How we coming there, Leslie?
Do we have the poll results, Nicole?
Oh, Nicole, sorry.
I can read them out. I just can't see them.
About, hold on.
No, thanks. It's a team effort. And
Yay.
this is a good one. Yeah. Do you have a summary? No. 16 out of 54. Yes, but it might need help. 24 out of 54. And yes, it's in good shape. 6 out of 54. No answer. 8 out of 54. So 16, 24, 6. Or no, yes, and yes, it's in good shape.
This is not bad. Only 16 said no. This is a better result than the headline. So good job, you guys. Now the question is going to be, does it set you up for your next opportunity? So let's travel into a short reflection exercise. So I'm going to give you a second to grab that paper and pen.
Oh, good.
I've got a visual. I have a visual for everything. I'm a visual learner, so I like to just say, there we go, paper and pen. And to warm us up, we're going to do some deep breaths in just a second, because usually we're racing through our days and are feeling really stressed with everything that's going on in our current climate. So we're going to take a pause, and we want to ask you to reflect, where do you want your path to take you? I've got a fun phrase I like to say. I'd like you to think about your best possible future self. But first, I'm going to guide you through 3 deep breaths. I'm a mindfulness advocate, and I integrate it even in my technology training. So, invitation to plant your feet squarely on the ground. Allow your rib cage to be open and your back to be upright but comfortable. And once you're in that position, you can even close your eyes. That's what I do for this. And we're going to take a 4-count inhale, 4-count pause, and 4-count exhale. Here we go. Inhale. Pause. 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale. Another inhale. Pause. 4, 3, 2, 1. Slow exhale. Last deep breath. Pause. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale. And then take a couple of regular deep breaths. That's it. Good. I know it's hard to think about tomorrow, let alone 3 years from now. If you could just think about this best possible future self a few years down the road, what are you doing? Jot these things on your piece of paper. It's a brainstorm exercise. Anything goes. Allow yourself a real freedom with this. What are you doing 3 years from now as your best possible future self? Is there a skill you're using more of? How might your coworkers describe you in this next environment, or because of the things you're doing? Maybe you want to talk about the way you're making an impact. Best possible future self. Here's what I'm doing. I'm going to be quiet for a moment. We don't get a chance to reflect that often. Let me just let you think about that for a second. Take one more moment. And if you feel like it, you can place a note in the chat box. This could be one word like a skill you want to use. This is your way of kind of owning it. It can be an adjective. I want to be more flexible. Or it could be a particular job title. I want to be VP. Or I want a transition. I want to move into this kind of job title. Or an impact. I want to impact underrepresented populations. So feel free. And Leslie will take a moment and look at those.
One person has just noted, what if one has multiple roles, not a single role?
It's great to capture all those in this exercise. And then when we shift back into LinkedIn, you'll be thinking about what's most important with that role that I want to make sure I capture. It is challenging when we go into LinkedIn to think about two things that are very different, but we'll get to that in a minute. The idea with this exercise is that I want you to set up your LinkedIn content to help you with what's next. Not just summarize the past, but be really selective about who you want to, what you want to put forth so that you can attract that next job that's further down the line. So we'll take a little moment and see, Leslie, if you're seeing anything popping in the chat that you'd like to share before we move into a couple of examples.
One person wrote jewelry and metalsmithing.
Nice.
Another person wrote published.
Ah, I love it.
That's a great, and
not I want to publish, but published, like it's happened. I like that. Anything else that people have added?
Someone wrote work with other artists. Someone wrote brave.
Ah, that's awesome.
Someone wrote engaging audience.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting with the sort of open-ended prompt that you gave us, Sabrina. Some people have honed in on like an adjective, like brave. Others like a fact, a career fact, like published, or something they're doing, working with other artists, engaging an audience. Someone wrote, oh, is it possible to connect me with the person who wrote that they want to work with other artists? Yes, person who wrote that, we can do that afterwards because I happen to know that person. So yeah.
I like it. Networking in the moment.
Oh, here's a great one. Somebody wrote, what if we really don't know? They said, I could be forced out of the military in 3 years, or I could be moving to a new career at that point. Do I just do it for the inevitable end of my military career? May that be in 3 years or after retirement in 12 years? So it sounds like part of the uncertainty in this person is they don't know the time frame of their next change point. It might be in 3 years, it might be longer, and there's just a lot of uncertainty.
There's a lot of uncertainty for a lot of people's lives. And so we might set out aspirations, but not know when they're going to come into being. But even for somebody that might be making a transition many years later, if right now we're interested in a particular thing, you can start building your network to get answers to what that field might be like now, and building connections and adding to that community of information. So even if it's far off, I think it's worthwhile to name it.
And someone, yeah. Oh, sorry, I agree. Someone else wrote, being a productive catalyst for change.
Yes.
And that's an interesting example because that could happen in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. That's
and in a lot of
very wide
different
open.
industries. The other thought I had, if someone's truly, truly not sure where they want to be in the future, maybe, and then you see what you think, Sabrina, maybe another thought is to think about, well, what are the qualities that you want to be known for now? What are like the core parts of how you do your job, how you approach your working life, your career that are going to be constants, right?
That's so great. So you can think, what are those adjectives that describe me that I want to take into a future work environment or into the military in another role? And then also, what are the skills that I want to be using more of? So those can be part of it. So I'm going to keep us moving through this, but Leslie and Nicole will be able to, if there's lots of questions on a particular topic, we'll be able to really collect those.
Mhm.
So let me tell you about one of my clients. First, you can see her headline, Finance and Operations Executive. And then her little tagline is grows financially strong organizations by going beyond the numbers. And here's what she meant by that. While I work in the world of numbers, translating data into financial insights, I never lose sight of an organization's mission and the people that the financials impact and serve. That's her opening line. Then she goes into more about her values and her personality. I've been recognized for my financial and business acumen, but also for how I lead, who I am, and what I value. With unquestioned integrity, a strong commitment to people, I lead with both my head and my heart. What I love about this is way more than what you normally put on a resume. We get a chance to show off not just how we work, what skills we have, but who we are. When a hiring manager is looking to fill a position, she is looking for two things. Can you do the job? And will you fit on my team? So this, do you fit on my team, the cultural component can actually be displayed in our summary if you choose to. Lisi goes on to have a very concrete section where she talks about her financial knowledge and operations, her relationship team and trust builder activities, and her collaborative leadership executing for results. On my LinkedIn section, which I'll show you real quick a little later, you can see lots of profile examples. I love examples. I also love before afters. You'll see some before afters for scientists in my LinkedIn section of my website. So use those for inspiration if that's helpful. Now, the last sort of little section I want to talk about in PowerPoint is this featured content section. It used to be called like media links, and now it's just called featured. This is another place where who you are can be represented. You can link to a website, you can link to a PowerPoint, you can link to a PDF, but you can also now link to a recent post. Positive change is important to me. So Black Lives Matter was what I chose to feature first so that I can help with that messaging. And so if there's something you believe in or is important to you, this is a neat place where you can have that come forth. So no, there's lots of different places within our profile. And here's a couple of other sort of posts that I did, and then it pulls in some of the content from that post. So people can kind of like really see more about who you are with that. So I'm going to take a little pause and just see if there's any questions, because we're going to move into LinkedIn and see some things live next. And I'm going to keep watching time because I know we only have till 2:15, because I could talk for 3 hours. But anyway, any questions popping up as I show off where my website is, which is right here, and we're going to go into LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yes, we do have some questions. Some of them are more, one is just a commentary saying, perhaps explain that about is the new name for summary.
Yes.
Which is a great comment for people.
Yeah.
Those of you that did your summary a while back may be thinking, wait, what is this about thing? They just renamed it, is mostly, right?
Yes, exactly. That's why I call it the about summary, because I think that helps.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that someone wrote, which is more general, that maybe you can put a little specificness into it or weave it in throughout the program. She or he said, what if you're an older person and you haven't worked in a while? And guess what? The haven't worked in the paid workforce for a while could apply to people of a variety of ages, right? People have been doing
Yes.
family caregiving or other reasons that they haven't been in the paid workforce. So that would be helpful.
Yes. So one of the things that I think is great to list in your LinkedIn profile is what you've done during anytime there's a gap. I've worked with people who've it's taking me 2 years to land a job kind of thing. So there's lots of gaps these days. Or I had an elderly parent that I was doing caretaking for. Or I did a certificate program and I had these kind of not meaningless, I had these random part-time jobs that didn't really fit to put on LinkedIn. So can you put what you've done in terms of education? Have you taken even some free courses? Those are great to list in your summary. Have you done any volunteer work? Those can be listed as in the experience section. So those are two of my favorites. I have seen people put childcare, took a career hiatus to welcome my new baby into the world. So I've actually seen people put that on LinkedIn. So that is acceptable. It's a list to show this time out for you. I'm going to keep going unless you've got some more questions that you want us to cover right now.
One person said, when you're in the media links or the links section, can they be Facebook links? And then that question of what's the line between personal, professional?
Sure. So Facebook. I've never had that question, and I think it's going to be a personal thing, but I've never seen it connected. But I think if you had a Facebook page for your business, then that would be appropriate. I don't know if you want to link to your individual Facebook. Perhaps you're a musician and all you post about is music, and you really want to promote your music. Maybe that would be a reason too. These are great questions. Thank you for asking. So I'm going to just jump in and I want to just show off a few sections. I'm going to go, there's again, so much on here and I'm going to show off just a few things. So I'm clicking the Me button and then going to View Profile. I want to physically show you where the headline is and this is what you can edit on the mobile app to make it longer. If you like the little symbols, pop over to my website, pop over to my LinkedIn page and then copy them. Control C and Control V is what you can do on a desktop. On a PC versus a Mac. The section.
I always tell people about all the punctuation in your LinkedIn profile, that there are ways, if you go into the help section of LinkedIn, they'll tell you how to get punctuation and bullets and little shapes and vertical slashes, but it's it's complicated. And the easiest way is exactly as Sabrina says, find a profile that has dots or bullets or diamonds that you like, copy and paste.
So here you go. Here's a whole host of them that you can grab if you wish. And here's also like little arrows and little mailbox. If you want, you can include your email in your LinkedIn profile, totally optional. I also have a specialty section so people can see so that it's picked up by keyword. So that's just another thing that you have options to do. So where I'm going to go next is, if you're looking at the handout, you'll see number 5 is sections. I just want to point out, add profile section here. And this is where you can add skills if you haven't added it already. Some of my favorites are, actually, let me see if I can scroll down so you guys can see these a little bit better. Some of my favorites are projects, which I think are under accomplishments. There it is. Projects is so flexible. It could be a project at work. It could be a project you did for your volunteer project organization. It could be something you're doing as part of a course. So that's got lots of flexibility. And that can allow you to get some of those important keywords in. So if you haven't already explored how you can add to your profile and customize it further, I'd make a little note and circle number 5 on your handout and come back to it. Where I'm going to go next, and in a few minutes I'll take a few more questions, but where I'm going to go next is the skills section. If you don't already have a skills section, this is where you add to it. If you do have the skills section, then we're going to scroll all the way down in my profile to show you how you can edit and change it. Your top 3 skills are the most important because that's what shows up right there. So I'm just going to say, you look here, skills and endorsements, and you'll see career counseling, mindfulness practices, and public speaking are the 3 that I wanted people to most know about me. You're adding a new skill is this button, and then changing them and reordering them, you can go and click the blue pencil. The reorder is these 4 lines. You lift and move and drag and whatnot. So think about what are those top 3 that I want and put them in the correct order for you. Don't get too hung up about endorsements, the numbers you have there. Instead, focus your energy on getting and giving a couple of recommendations. So let me just show you where the recommendations are. A little further down, you'll see recommendations. So you can ask for one and you can give them on an individual's profile. This is such a great way to share kindness with past coworkers or current vendors and clients. You can also appreciate. So remember, endorsements are not as big of a deal, the numbers. Instead, make a goal maybe to have 2 or 3 of these recommendations. Now, a few months back, last fall, one of my clients was going in for a very important all day long interview. And at the end, the hiring manager that she had the final interview with, she gave a printed out copy of her LinkedIn recommendations and said these can be seen on, and gave the URL to her profile. That was powerful because she had, I don't know, 7 or 8 or so words of appreciation and recognition from other people that she worked with. What a nice thing to bring as a leave behind at the end of an interview. All right, I'm going to do one more show, and I think it's just one more show and tell, and then we're going to take some more questions before we move into networking as a topic. I'm going to go back up to talk about featured content, just so you can see where it is and how to work with it. So featured falls right underneath your profile summary, about section, I gotta say. And with the blue pencil or with the plus sign, I can add a new piece. Now, here's a really important thing to know about this. If you have never written an article on LinkedIn or never written up your own post, created a post, you won't be able to do featured. So bare minimum, let's just say you're in private practice and you have your own website. Bare minimum, write up a post about your website and put it on your homepage. Then go back to that section right here and go into posts, and then it will show up that recent post. So this allows me to go in and grab something that I've shared recently. I can choose one of these and make it a featured one. So I just scroll down, but it only shows me the most recent ones. Okay. Yeah. So that's just something to keep in mind how that works. If I want to edit, I hit the blue pencil. It allows me to change the order of my featured content. And it allows me to edit what shows up in this box. Two more hints to make this as successful as it can be. One, I like to label in all caps the type of media: video, website, blog. And I like to customize the content right here so that people know what is on that media. So you'll see that, except for when it's a post, that just picks up the post directly. So you'll see this says conference co-chair, this says workshop, this says blog, that says workshop. So then people know what it actually is. Co-facilitator, all in caps. So that's my best practices for that. All right, I'm going to take a pause, see if there's more questions. But I'm also going to just say, you've got this handout that has my top 10 list for Savvy Profile. You couldn't in an hour and 15 cover all of them, because then we'd never get to networking. So just know those are there for you to kind of go back to, and they're all hyperlinked as well for more information. Okay, to you, Leslie, tell me what's popping up question-wise.
Okay, Here's someone who has an interesting, she said, how important is it to have featured content?
I think it's a great opportunity. I don't think it's a have to, but look at where it is. Look at how high up it is, guys and gals. It is right underneath. Before you even get to my experience, you're going to see my featured content. So that alone makes me say it'd be really good to have maybe two visuals, because you can only see 2.5 here anyway.
Mm-hmm. And someone else says, well, what if you haven't published content?
So if you haven't yet, go to your homepage and post something that you want to have be in your media. Let's just say last year I did a workshop and I want it to show up, and I want to be able to add it into featured. Well, I can post it. Once you do this once, that opens up the channel to add in anything else you want. It's a one-time thing, and I don't know why LinkedIn had to do that to us. It's annoying. But again, let's just say I created a one-page PowerPoint slide that talked about my volunteer work. I upload it to a post in LinkedIn, and I just say, I'm sharing my belief in this organization and all the good work they're doing. The PowerPoint slide summarizes my involvement. And then boom, now you can get that PowerPoint into your featured section. All right, more questions?
Yes. Do you recommend taking the skills quizzes?
Oh,
that's another relatively new feature, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or new-ish?
It's so new, I have no idea if it's really valued in the workplace. That's going to be my short and honest answer. Now, if you give me 6 months and it's more in there and we get a chance to ask HR individuals are going to be the ones that are going to really know. So I'm going to have to say I got to hold on that for now and say, let's just wait and see. Sorry, I don't have a better answer than that. Yeah, thank you for asking it though.
Yeah, no,
and ping me in a few months. The individual who asked it, ping me in a few months. Connect with me on LinkedIn and ask me a little later. We could also put up a poll about it and see if HR people would respond.
Here's a great question. Oh, they're wonderful questions. When is it appropriate to send a recommendation request? After 1 or 2 good interactions with a client, or should it be a long time coworker or longer time relationship?
I would probably wait until I've had more interaction. So if I worked with a client for a period of time, for me, I think I would have to be at the end of working with the client, and then I would feel comfortable sending that request. So I think that's an individual choice. You're going to have to kind of work through, and when you do ask for it, you can say it's really fine just to have 2 sentences. It doesn't have to be long. And when they're colleagues, you can recommend them first, and then see if they automatically recommend you. And if they don't, a week later, ping them and say, I just thought I'm trying to improve my recommendation section as I start to think about my next career move. Wondering if you might take a moment and put in 2 sentences. That's a nice way to ask.
I think those are really good points. It does depend on the relationship. Ideally, you want it to be a relationship where somebody can speak about not just Sabrina is great and fun to work with, but here's how she impacted our work, or here's the result that we got together, is the ideal. But if it's 2 sentences and they're impactful and not just that you're a nice person, awesome. Here's a great one. I'm finishing up my PhD, just getting started on the job market. Do you think upgrading to a premium version is worth it? And I would also broaden that question to a lot of folks ask me that as well. Is it worth upgrading to premium, and when? And I'd be fascinated to hear, your take on that. There's no one size fits all answer.
No, you could ask, 10 different LinkedIn trainers and you might get 10 different answers. I'll just give you mine. If you worked, notice that I said worked in a job involving business development, sales, HR, recruiting, anywhere where development, fundraising and development. If you worked in one of those roles, absolutely. And I would probably bump past premium and go to sales navigator, because then it's just going to give you so much more. So my reply to a individual job seeker is usually skip it and use the workarounds that I'm going to show you in today's session to be able to reach somebody. In-mails are only, not everybody responds to in-mails, and that's one of the benefits of becoming a paid member, if you will.
I will say from personal experience and a few power user job seekers who are just really, really good at doing research and exploring different profiles on LinkedIn. LinkedIn shuts you down if you do a lot of searches. And they don't shut you down. They just say, we won't show you any more search results unless you upgrade to premium. So
Yeah,
sometimes that comes up. Yeah,
it does happen. That's a monthly thing. So you get reset. It says something like, it appears you're you're using this for commercial use or something, and then it says you can't search anymore. So yes, I've seen that. I've then used a friend's profile who's inactive to continue doing my work because it's really frustrating when you hit that wall.
So just to amplify it, are you saying that that number count, that wall resets each month?
In the past, that's how it's worked.
Okay, this is great to learn, because part of what I've told people is, try the premium for a short time period, for example, and really keep track of what it gives you that you didn't have before and how worth it. So if you're launching a consulting practice, right, that's another type of person, I would say.
If you're launching a business of any kind, you may want that.
Yeah, great questions.
But here's the deal. I would rather than send a cold in-mail, I would rather engage people on LinkedIn with back and forth, especially with how I can help them before I ask for anything. My favorite networking strategy is how I can help, because that's how I like to be in the world. So, let's have everyone think about engagement as a way. And you go back and forth, say in a group, or go back and forth because you searched a hashtag and found some good content. Go back and forth with somebody, share their work and call them out on the work, and then maybe say, I would love to continue talking about this topic. And you say that in a LinkedIn invitation. Would you connect with me? I would love to pick up where we left off on XYZ topic. Maybe we could have a 10-minute chat sometime in the coming weeks. So that then you go with the topic. So I'm getting into the next section already because I can't help it, because it's fun stuff. And I'm watching the time. So I'm going to hold on more questions so that we can jump right into that networking piece via me going back to some PowerPoint slides and then sliding back into LinkedIn itself. So let's just do this next piece. Let's see if my computer wants to share that. So I'm big on adding to connections for people you know. So if you're a student, it's fellow students. If you're working, at past coworkers, current, even friends and family, because the person that you know that is your cousin might have a friend that works in the field you're interested in. Personalize those invites, say the words thank you. This is because you're trying to engage, you're trying to be kind. It's just a good practice. I loved this one that came in from Joanna. I had never met her. She wrote, I always enjoy connecting with people who are experts in their industry, especially those in New England. I look forward to being able to share value with you. What a great phrase. Nice invitation. And I got her permission to share this with all of you. I like to ask for an introduction. So you might be able to see through LinkedIn that one of your first level connections knows somebody else. So this is the real value. And you reach out to that person in an email and you say, hey, Leslie, do you know that person at NYU well enough in the Career Center to introduce me? I wanted to see what they're doing with some of their best practices around online programming, or whatever my reason is. Or I'm thinking about moving to New York and want to hear a little bit more about how their Career Center operates, right? So that's the power of this network. Now we're going to shift into something else, which is using your homepage and adding updates. And what I'd like to do is get a quick poll. So we're going to put a poll up about this. And what we're wanting to know is, when you go to that homepage, when you first open LinkedIn up, a lot of people just skip over it or they glance at it. Are you ever active on there? Do you post? I didn't go and ask if you like things or read things. Many of you may do that. I'm asking for that next level. Have you ever generated your own post? Maybe never, maybe once in a while, like once or twice a month, one every 1 or 2 months. Yes, at least once a week, or yes, daily. So we're just going to kind of see. I'm in the almost daily, as long as if my computer's on, then I usually post something and share something. Yeah, we'll give you a second. While this is going on, I'll share an example of some engagement. Someone posted something about mindfulness, and saw it in my home feed. She was a second level person, but it showed up because a first level liked it. I read it and I really liked what she wrote, and so I shared it on my page by clicking the share button, and I called her out by giving her credit for that great piece about mindfulness. A week later, I went and said, I really enjoy the content that you've shared and wanted to see if you'd like to be first level connections here on LinkedIn. And she said yes. And then we even were thinking about, this was somebody in the UK, we were even thinking about whether or not I might be able to connect the next time I was there. So really kind of neat that you can grow your content by first being kind by sharing it. All right. This is clear. We've got lots of room for growth here.
Oh, yeah, can you see the poll results?
I can, yeah.
And a comment or just came up. When you share something, doesn't it call the person out automatically, like on Facebook, or no? Do you have to specifically name them?
You have to name them.
Ah, that's good to know.
With the @ sign. Yeah. All right. Let's dive in and talk a little more about this. Then I'm going to go show you how to do it, and we're going to go from there. Yeah. So we can take that down. Just clean up my screen here. And you know what? I can be your buddy when you go to share something. You can say, if you connect with me on LinkedIn, you could send me a message through LinkedIn messages and say, Sabrina, I just posted something. Can you go take a look at it and comment? I'll be that person to get you some activity and to encourage you, because I really love it when new people start to use it. Here's an example. A woman named Kathy Robinson wrote a fantastic article about working from home. Really relevant right now, by the way. She's turningpointboston.com. You can find this post if you go to her website, if you like this. Again, turningpointboston.com. So I tagged her in it, and several people made comments appreciating it. You can also just make a statement. Here's my statement. Looking for a job, trying to network more? Shift gears and think about how you can help or add value for others. Being of service is an amazing way to authentically grow your network. That got 47 likes. Yes, I have a huge network, so I have that advantage, but this resonated with people, and it was very short and simple, just something I believe in. Here's a scientist posting 3-photon imaging of mouse brain structure. I don't know anything about this, but the point is that scientists are even on here. 30 likes and 3 comments from Medi's post. So all different industries are showing up. Let me share with you one more fun one. Somebody I'm a first level connection with named Jim posted, for people looking for remote work, Byron Clark at Sidekick shares his favorite remote job boards. Well, I shared it and I said, thank you, Jim, and I tagged him and Byron. I've been collecting resources for remote work to give to my clients, and will add this post to my handout. Do you know that later that day, Byron Clark reached out to me to connect with me, and he's one of LinkedIn's top voices. That was an honor that he made that move to connect with me. So how can we share value? How can we call out people doing good work? This can really make a difference in how we grow our network. The last comment I say is, by showing up over and over in LinkedIn, I've maintained a presence for some of my fellow career counselors. This ongoing presence was part of why or how I landed a part-time contract at the Harvard School for Public Health. It was because two people had messaged me, one through LinkedIn saying there was an opening, and one through email saying there was an opening. They flagged me. They knew I was looking for a part-time career coach role. Or one of them knew I was looking, and the other one just shared it with me, the opening. So there's this idea that when you're being present in your community, in your industry, that people then may think of you when they see something for you. It's powerful. Stay top of mind to your network. I've talked quite a bit about featured content, so this is just that reminder there. And but what I want to share is, let's just say there's somebody you'd really like to connect with. Why not go see what their featured content is? You could then comment on one of their posts. My favorite ways to comment are tell them something you like or agree with, and then ask them a question. Then you get the back and forth with that person. Just best practices. This can be for featured content, but it also can be for just how you operate on your homepage. For some of you, this is a lot because LinkedIn is a very complex tool. So I'm going to take a little pause, see how we're doing. Oh, we're doing okay for time. There's more that I want to show you, but how are we doing questions-wise, Leslie?
We have some good questions. I mean, they're all good questions, but there's some meaty ones. I mean,
I'm going to take like two because I've got so much more content to cover. Yeah.
Yeah. This person says, I've barely used LinkedIn. I'm in a full-time job that I want to leave, but I know my boss and other colleagues are on LinkedIn. I want to begin building my presence on LinkedIn as I start building my new business. Can I block certain viewers, or can I keep my profile private until I'm ready to release it? This is an interesting one because it also applies to when you're job searching, on the down low. Even if it isn't a new business you're launching, I definitely have people who say, yeah, when my colleagues see that I've beefed up my LinkedIn profile and I'm doing all this stuff there, they're going to think I'm job searching, and I don't want them to know.
This one is so hard, and the answer is no. We can't block anyone. Anyone can see our LinkedIn profile, and anyone can see our activity. So you have to really think carefully about the content that you are sharing and what you say in your profile. You have to kind of, for some of us that are in a career transition, you kind of have to try and straddle multiple worlds. Like, let's say you're in finance, but you're moving to a sustainability job. You have to kind of make statements like, talk about some of the things in your work that are transferable. And then you can say, in terms of my interests, they range from sustainability to green living to best practices in financial blah, 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 blah. So you have to make statements that allow you to stay in the old world, but open up the new world at the same time. This is tricky. I don't have hard and fast like rules or guides, but you can also look for people that have written guides on career transition, best practices for LinkedIn. How can you be stealth about your job search, but grow those connections? One thing is that people can't see who you are sending private messages to. They can't see who you've just sent an invitation to. So sometimes we want to take things, once you make a connection, just get it off of LinkedIn as your way to grow. But yes, please be very careful if you don't want your employer to know. I still think you can upgrade your LinkedIn profile content, but just be careful with this. Yeah, I wish I had a better one.
The other point I thought of making was you definitely can have your profile private, right, while you're working on it, which means no one can see it, correct?
Can you pull it down completely? I think when you make it private, it's just not showing up in external searches, but I'd have to go, for the person that wrote that, will you connect with me on LinkedIn and ask me, because I got to go back into privacy and settings.
This is good for me to know too, because I thought that in privacy and settings, you could, be working on your profile and have it be set like, this is completely invisible. No one can see it. It is just me and my computer working on it. But that's what I thought. But if I'm wrong.
I don't think so, but there is something that says private. It means you don't show up in certain searches. So,
okay, good.
Leslie, you and I can have a powwow, and That way people can reach out to you or reach out to me. We're going to get that answer after this session.
Thanks, Sabrina.
Yes. All right. I'm gonna, let's see, how am I doing? Actually, okay. So groups, you can join up to 100. You can participate in conversations. I like two kinds of groups to join. Really big ones because you can actually reach people within a group, even though you're not connected to them. And we'll talk about that in a minute. You can do that 15 times per month, not per group. Again, you can reach someone in a group that you're not connected with by messaging them. It's a really cool trick. Big groups can sometimes have a lot of spam. So the other kind of group I like is really small and niche. I have something called Career Counselor Technology Forum Group. It's tiny, 2,000. That's not that tiny, but it's really specific, and therefore really I find more quality content in the narrower ones. So join both sizes, and you can use groups to find people for informational interviews. Instead of taking comments from our audience, I'm going to pick on Leslie or Nicole. What the heck is an informational interview? Can one of you chime in?
Sure, I will. It's reaching out to someone, and many of the people I work with, I'm coaching them on how to find an alum in their field, but it could be a secondary connection. A lot of people have a strong inner network that can then introduce them to someone. Anyway, someone, you know them or you don't know them, but you have access and you want to get career advice. You want, maybe it's learning, about the basics of what is their field, what do they do every day, or maybe you're at a more sophisticated level and you're asking more about the sort of current challenges and needs and getting their advice about where your value might fit in, how you could help.
I love it. And I love doing informational interviews, even though I'm not looking for a job, because I just like to learn. So great opportunities for advice and insight. My colleague Andrea came up with this. Leslie, I think you were in on that call. Andrea talking about micro ask. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I love this concept. So instead of asking for a full-fledged hour conversation with somebody, can you ask them for 10 minutes about something specific? It's more narrow. I'm thinking about this certification program to make a switch into blank, and you took this certification. Can I chat with you? Or I'm trying to make a decision between startups and a more developed small business. You've done both. Can I chat with you? Micro ask. So we're going to keep going about how you can find people in LinkedIn, but my quick take is specific careers, career changes, the trends that are going on, and company culture are great topics for informational interviews. I asked on LinkedIn once, have you done them? And how do you rank them 1 to 10? Definitely a 10. Exposure is great for everyone was one feedback. I'm telling high school students to do it was another one. And someone else, it gave her the confidence to start her business, and she's still connected to the people she did the info interviews with as role models. One last person said, I went out and talked to 5 people because I was thinking I really need a big change. I talked to a bank president, VP at a paper mill, a CEO at a medical center, a city manager, and a community college president. Best thing I ever did. Each had advice and suggestions in their industries, and one later down the line ended up hiring me. That was the community college president. So you're planting seeds when you get a chance to do these informational interviews. So let's pop back into LinkedIn and let me show you first 2 things. One is, how do you get into groups? I could put in sustainability. Now I can put in the whole word. I got to make sure I spell it right. Sometimes I spell it wrong. I'm going to hit enter, but you can see on the drop-down menu, you could also go to sustainability and groups. But if you forget to do that, what I want you to know is to get into groups, you click the more key. All right. And then you go to groups. Now I can see 7,000. So you might decide to go further out to some of the smaller ones because they're usually put in here by size, but wow, so incredible. Or you decide to add another word to it, sustainability and energy or what have you. Okay. Now I'm going to go back, clear this, go back to my home page, get rid of that. What I want to do next is show you how you can reach somebody who you're not connected to, but you share a group with. This is page 2 of my handout. Halfway down, page 2, you'll see under networking as part of the job search an explanation. And it's going to tell you how to do this, so you don't have to scribble notes. It's a step-by-step process. But let me just take you through it. Okay, here we go. Because I'm a trainer, I am going to say, trainer, I'd love to talk to other trainers. I'm going to hit enter. Now, I want to look at people who are trainers, so I'm going to click that button. My next step is that I want to go to, because there's too many, there's 5 million. I want to go to all filters, and I'm going to start with my geography. I am located about an hour south from Boston. I'm in Providence, Rhode Island. So even if I just do Providence, RI, and then I hit the apply button, I am then going to be able to filter. And one by one, now I've got 7,000, it's a little bit easier. One by one, I can go through and look at some of these individuals and what they're doing to see if anybody grabs me. If, and only if, they're connected in a group with me, then I'll show you this back way to message them. This back way to message them does not involve asking them to be a first level connection. Some people want to keep their group of who they connect with small and only people they know. So this is a workaround. Let's use Courtney because she's a trainer and an event planner and a certified career development professional. So Courtney would probably be pretty cool for me to chat with. I scroll down here. I have an opportunity to see if I have a mutual connection, and we have a load. I'm a president of a professional association for career coaches, so I've got a lot of people I'm connected with on here, so that wasn't surprising. And Courtney and I also happen to be together in 8 mutual groups. Look at all those. So I can go into something like the NCDA, but let me back up. I'm going to highlight her name so I can do Control-C and copy it, her name, so I don't have to retype it. Now I can go into the professional association. Here's the deal. You want to look in the upper right-hand corner under members. Okay, this is hard to see. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the See All button. Now it will allow me, and this has changed again a little bit. On my handout, it says click on the number of members. Anyway, it keeps changing. So good, I can update my handout again. In this box, I now drop her name. Now, check it out. She's a second level connection, but I can message her right from here. Now, one more thing to show you. I'm going to my own website, sabrina-woods.com. I clicked on the LinkedIn tab here because I want you to know there are examples of how to ask for an informational interview and the types of questions to ask. So feel free to use these handouts when you're crafting both your message to request the informational interview and the actual questions you prepare ahead of time. So that's the questions, and here's some samples. And I wouldn't be surprised if Leslie and Nicole, if there's some samples on the Tufts website about informational interviews.
Yep.
So if there is a section, Leslie, maybe, or Nicole, maybe you can pop that into the chat box so people have that resource as well as this one for how to ask for the informational. I have one more thing to show super fast, and then we'll take questions. Let me just show this last thing to you, and that is I can put in Tufts University, and I can get to the alumni page. Whoops, it's showing me Tufts University. Search all of LinkedIn. I should have gone back to the homepage before I did that. Okay, what I do is I want to find the school page. So what you do here is you click on the More button again, and then you'll find schools. I'm not going into their group or the company page. The school page is what I'm doing. There it is. Now, some of you might be an alum from Friedman, for example, or one of the other ones. I would enjoy, you can go into Fletcher individually, Friedman individually, etc. But I'm going to go into this one right now, just so you can see how the alumni page works. I don't have to be an alum to go search the alumni. It's the other interesting thing. So here I click the alumni button. Now I get this awesome way to dissect the data in multiple ways. There's 72,000 alumni on here. How incredible is that? So I could pick where someone lives because maybe I'm moving to a new city, where they work. I could pick my major, or I could pick the focus area. Maybe I really want to explore research as an example. So the last column, when you go to the next button, there's 6 different columns. Oops. The last one is what they scaled at and how you're connected. So show more. Maybe I want someone that's into research and public speaking as a combination. And anybody who falls under that category now shows up down below. At this point, I can see if they're in a group with me, maybe an alumni group. I can see if I can go to the alumni directory and find their email address. Or I could try just messaging them with a direct connect, meaning like ask them to be a connection with me. You're a fellow alum, I'd love to hear about your career. You know, some people will say yes when you share the same alma mater. I'm going to turn it back to Leslie. There's probably questions. I think we will be closing in a few moments, but maybe we stop the recording and still stay on for an extra 5. I'm happy to do so for more questions if you wish.
Oh, thank you. There are definitely questions. One person says, and I think this is interesting, is it possible to have too many connections? Do you recommend only connecting with people in fields that are relevant to my interests?
You're talking to somebody who has biased. Okay, I'm biased. I have almost 6,000 connections. So pros and cons of saying yes to connections. Let me cover that real quick. The cons: you might get on more mailing lists. I have seen colleagues of mine who've had their profile compromised. My friend Jim, who showed up earlier on here, had somebody hacked his profile and actually went in and changed his featured content to stuff that they wanted to get promoted, which I thought was crazy because Jim just changed it back and talked to LinkedIn and got it locked down again. So there is a concern that your profile could get hacked, but I haven't heard that story happen very frequently. On the flip side, the positives are you show up on more home pages with your own messaging. You show up in more searches. If I'm an HR person looking to fill a role, then more than 3 levels out aren't even going to show up for me. So having more connections means I show up in more HR searches. So that's a couple of quickie benefits for that. Let me turn it back over to more questions. And you can tell me how long you want to go. I really want to respect people's time. I want to say also, I'm happy to connect with you. Actually, I'll show you my last couple of slides just so that you see this while we're still taking, oops. Yeah. While we're still taking some questions, but I'm happy to connect with you and answer these. Please don't ask me for a profile review. I think you can do that. Maybe you can do that with your alumni office. I'm not sure. But when you get stuck, send me a message, because then I'm learning where you're getting stuck and I can include it in future workshops. But my next step thing says, here's a great kind of to-do list: customizing your header, strong summary about section, the featured media links, participate in groups, info interviews, which used to be a cup of coffee and now can be you can still say cup of coffee. You can just do it from each of your offices over Zoom. You could even send someone maybe a little gift card for a cup of coffee that they could have it another day. That might be kind of sweet. But let me go back to questions. You feel like taking a couple more, or is it wrap up time? You tell me.
I'd say let's take some more. People can always click off and leave when they need to. Nicole, you can chime in when you'd like to about the timing issue. Um, Great questions coming in. Again, all questions are great, but some of them are just really meaty. Like, for example, here's someone who says, I have hesitation about social media because of past experience with, very negative and hateful posts.
Oh,
On Facebook says secondary posts. I'm not sure if the person means comments or about issues I hold dear. Can you speak to the safety of connecting on LinkedIn?
I'm so sorry that you had that experience. My experience, I'm very little on Facebook, so I can't speak to that. But my experience on LinkedIn is I have not had any. I've not seen any hateful posts. So perhaps there's more professionality, more professionalism on this particular platform, and maybe you dip your toe in. I want you to feel comfortable. So I'd say start with um, looking at your homepage. Your homepage is a direct result with who you are connecting with and what content you follow. So you have some control over that. So my hope is that your experience will be better on this time around. Yeah, maybe starting small and just going on there to see what's showing up.
I will say I've also in my work I haven't had the experience or heard of the experience of people having those kinds of negative things happen on LinkedIn. So one thought that I have is perhaps the people on LinkedIn are just behaving a little more professionally because they know they'll be visible in their workplace, um, and
Yeah,
and that they feel
exactly.
sort
Anybody
of
can see
control
these
themselves
posts.
more. So it's pretty professional. Yeah, that's what I've seen. Very professional. Here's another great strategy question. If you're interested in very, very different fields, can you just make two separate LinkedIn accounts?
I'm afraid that you can't. It will create problems because someone will type in your name. Someone once that I worked with, or not worked with, but was at a webinar or workshop I was doing, was a pharmacist and a photographer. And so it would be difficult because if someone types in his name looking for a pharmacy specialist and they come across the photographer, then they don't go any further. It would be way too confusing. For that person, by the way, he wrote his professional pharmacy title in his LinkedIn profile, this section right here, I'll highlight. And at the end of it, where I have mindfulness advocate, he put avid photographer. As one of his featured media links, he included his website for his photography. He just allowed his presence to show that he's both a scientist and an artist, which I thought was really cool.
Mhm. Good.
Yeah.
And someone asks a great, again, thoughtful question about, is the purpose of groups just to create connections with people you don't know?
Great. The purpose of groups, I think one is information that you share about a specific topic. And come back to Career Counselor Technology Forum. It's career counselors who want to use technology. So it's a it's a professional growth opportunity, and it's an opportunity to connect with people that share that similar topic. So yeah, it's a lot of things. That's a great place to start. Let's say you've only got 10 LinkedIn connections. You have tens of thousands of groups that you can consider and go into and participate in. And again, some of those smaller groups, if I jumped into Career Counselors Consortium, you'd see some really high quality content. There's a lot of variety out there for the content.
And another thing I'd like to amplify is that it depends, but in groups, particularly that are focused on a particular industry or a particular professional role, particular kinds of problems or challenges, you may be able to be helpful in the group.
Yes,
Answer someone's question, share a resource that someone is looking for, and that's a way to both be noticed and be helpful, as Sabrina has been having as her theme. Okay, another just quick,
for
just to make
fun,
sure people,
while you're answering questions for fun, I put in the chat box a link to a poll. I want to tell you guys that I've been waiting for polls to come in. I'd keep checking, and I'll show you where you get to polls. I did this morning, not knowing if it was going to work. Just like, why not try it? You can use this link and actually go into this poll and respond. If you've never done anything on LinkedIn, this might be a nice, place to experiment. The poll is just asking, it doesn't identify people, and it just is telling us, 40% of job seekers, I'm all in, going for it. 40% some networking and applications. 20% I put the search on hold. So I was just curious where people were at, and I wanted to ask that question. But sorry, Leslie, coming back to your question.
No, thank you for that update. Let me get back to the chat field over here. Yeah, let's see. Oh yeah, just again, making sure participants have seen that there is a terrific large group, which Sabrina can't personally show you because it's the Tufts University Career Network Group. Some of you are already members, probably. There's over 18,000 alumni, students, faculty, and staff. It's Tufts' largest group and managed by Alumni Career Services. So again, that's a way that wouldn't be so much the industry-specific questions, but more connecting with and learning about people and programs related to alumni. And a recording of this webinar will be available in about a week on our YouTube playlist. And let's see if there were any other important questions that I missed. Those are the main ones that I see. I think the other value that I was going to say about having connections with people that might be in very different fields from your own, perhaps a close friend or a relative, is, especially if it's a close friend or a relative, they will do things like what Sabrina was saying to help amplify your voice. And you can do that for them too. And also sometimes cross-functional, cross-industry networks have an interesting richness. They'll know information and resources that you would never know because they have different networks. So both kinds of people are great.
If anybody's still on, add into the chat one thing you might do because of today. There's something powerful about owning your next step. So this is an invitation. I know most people are bowing out. You got to go get some lunch and get back to work or get back to your job search. But if you wanted to in this final moment, my advice after you finish a webinar is to say, what have I taken away and what action am I going to take? Because it's great and you get energized, and sometimes our energy fades. So by making it public, it's one step, or making a note, thinking it through can really help you take the action. And giving yourself a deadline is great too. Hey, by a week from now, I want to update my profile, join 3 groups, and start watching my homepage once a week. Once a week, check your homepage and add or comment. Baby steps in are great.
Yep, we have people saying goals like looking into groups of fields I'm interested in and editing my specialties in the About section. Great thing to do. The sort of area where you list sort of all the keywords related to your work that could jive with job ads or other people's needs. Yep.
Great.
I think that's great for the questions. Thank you so much, Sabrina, and for your generosity with time as well as information and resource.
So nice to be here. I really appreciate collaborating with you, and hope that people take action and can use this to advance their career and to help others. So thanks so much, all.
Thank you. Take care, everybody, and good luck with those